Our preview of this upcoming season, Rise of the Phoenix, which releases as we are recording tomorrow on July 4th, 2023. So let's go ahead. We'll get into the cards that are upcoming here. The first card, the premier card that's coming along with the purchase of the season is Phoenix Force, which is a 5 energy, 6 power card. And on reveal, you revive one of your destroyed cards and merge it with that card. That card can move each turn. I put down here that it sounds fun until you realize that you can only really move it one turn. Unless you can get it out there earlier than turn 5. You're going to bring back a heavy hitter, possibly. It's going to turn into a heavy hitter, at least, that can move.
Until you realize it's just Quicksilver.
I'm not convinced that it's going to be a big turnaround unless you can get it out there a little bit earlier. It'd be nice to have, here we go. Now I can move it 1 or 2 turns. And let's see, what are some of the common cards that get destroyed? Usually like an Angel or I wonder if it probably wouldn't do anything.
I wonder if you could bring back an extra Deadpool.
I was sitting there thinking or a Bucky.
Yeah. An extra. Yeah, but why would you want to bring back Bucky? I guess you could destroy him again. But that would be even less points. And Deadpool, the thing is, I wonder. I would assume it would just as long as Deadpool was in your hand, he didn't count as a destroyed card because otherwise you could get any Deadpool from 1 to whatever his last value was.
Wolverine already stays out there. I thought about Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Nova. Yeah, Nova.
That wouldn't be bad.
I mean, it wouldn't be too bad.
End up destroyed again.
She gets killed again, right?
But that's not so bad if you play Null.
Yeah, you can't really do anything with Destroyer because Destroyer is going to cost 6 unless you can get them out there early.
But I think maybe you don't play Phoenix with a Destroy deck, but you play it like I've messed around with some decks where the only discard card I have is Sith, so she takes out the highest cost card, and then I have Ghost Rider bring it back.
But maybe
you play Phoenix with a deck where there's only one card you try to destroy. Maybe you build up Kitty Pryde or Sunspot and then drop Killmonger in there and the Phoenix Force.
It almost feels like an insurance policy more than it does like a way you can use it as a weapon. But still, I'm sure there's a way to use it. You either Carnage or Deathlock, something along those lines. What is a good high-powered card that costs very little?
Ebony Maw.
You can move this thing anywhere. That was probably a really good combo because at that point you bring out Phoenix Force on turn 5. That resurrects Ebony Maw. You now have a 1/13 card that can move. And it doesn't matter that nobody can play it unless you're, I guess it does kind of factor into it because nobody's going to be able to play where that's at. But really, essentially, you can move that to where you need it the most. And
if you played Vulture and then Carnage or Deathlock and then Phoenix Force Vulture, but that'd get him to a 14. It's more moving parts than Ebony Maw.
Do you think the on reveal happens again when you revive it?
I wouldn't think so, but I don't know. I mean, it works for Arnim Zola, so maybe.
Yeah, it gets destroyed and replicated somewhere else, so this gets revived. Maybe it does. I'm looking for, I would say low cost, high power would probably be the best way to go.
Ebony Maw is the best option I've heard so far. If you could Phoenix up Spider-Man 2099, move 12 points over and destroy one of their cards.
Right. That'd be sweet. Now, you mentioned Project Pegasus or the White Hot Room. Yeah, you can get Phoenix Force out there pretty early if that's the case.
Now, as far as cards I might want to be packing, especially if people are going to be using a lot of Phoenix Force, I would say you might want to consider Elektra or Killmonger, because Killmonger takes out a bunch of one-cost cards, then, unless it's Ebony Maw, they can't pick who's coming back. So it's a crapshoot. I mean, they're still 6 better than they were, but I think Elektra or Killmonger could frustrate some of those plans.
It also may remain a 5-cost card, even if it turns into even if it's resurrecting a 1/7. So kind of like Clintar. Clintar used to change all those to a symbiote that was 1 cost, and then they changed that to 4 because Killmonger could have his, he would take them out. So I'm not saying that
one of those would take them out. I'm saying if somebody is trying to destroy a specific card to bring it back with the Phoenix Force, then if you destroy a bunch of cards, they don't know which one's coming back.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. Well,
Phoenix-powered Korg is less intimidating than Phoenix-powered Ebony Maw. But a lot funnier.
Oh, yes. Jean Grey,
Wasn't
which
she
we
our
had
number one on unsnapped characters, both of us?
Yes, she was. Both of us. Yeah. We were, and we
long overdue.
That's where we were going in and looking at MarvelSnapped.com or whatever it was, whichever one, Snap Zone, and we had seen her there, and we're looking at it and we're like, it's unreleased, so the card looks exactly like it did on snapzone.com. So they obviously have an in somewhere. But anyway, Jean Grey, ongoing. Players must play their first card here each turn if possible. So yes, that is each turn. And I wrote down here, someone call Mojo.
And Dazzler. But yeah, yes. Mojo definitely. Ant-Man. And then you had some other guys listed there as well. The Guardians, you know where people are going to go. Or if you've got Nebula, play her somewhere you're not going to play Jean Grey. And then your opponent will have to at least take a couple turns, allowing her to get her bonus.
I love that strategy. That's brilliant. I like that. All right.
You could also maybe mess with them if you play Jean Grey and get maybe throw Polaris in there, divert one of their cards and make them play an extra turn at the Jean Grey location.
Well, I think the way that this works, this is players must play their first. So it's not opponents, it's players. So everybody.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah,
everybody has to play there. Now, if you play multiple cards.
Should have quit while I was ahead.
Well, if you play multiple cards, that's a different story.
I mean, you could always throw our buddy, I say our buddy Brew, but it's the Brood. You know, you fill yours up first. They still have to spend another turn or two filling it up, and you can play yours wherever.
Yeah, true.
And then the Polaris strategy works.
Yep.
And as long as you're putting all those 3-cost cards in there, just throw Silver Surfer in there. I've just made a third of your deck right there.
There it is.
And then Nebula and the Guardians, that's most of the rest of it, right?
Yeah, really it is, dude. Guardians, Nebula, which you could almost argue that she's a Guardian too. But Guardians, Nebula, and Jean Grey, and Brew,
and Polaris.
And Polaris.
X-Men who have all spent time in space.
Yep. Man, I mean, and Silver Surfer, you're going to get a huge boost at that location. Well, shoot, the way Silver Surfer works, is it 3-cost cards?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then he would work. And Jean Grey is a 3/3. So right there, that will go way up. Their strategy most likely will be to try to play multiple cards if they can. So they're going to throw a low-cost one in there most likely, and possibly even, I don't know, but you have a really good chance of winning that lane. So, yeah, that'll be fun to watch. Next up, Echo. Costs 1, 2 power. After your opponent lays an ongoing card here, remove its abilities.
So you would have to play Echo. Echo would already have to be there, right?
That's my guess. The way, and you probably watched the same video I did where they were talking about these cards. He's like, now finally an answer for Cosmo. And I was like, well, I mean, that's if Echo has to be there first. And it's who's going to lay down Cosmo on if Echo's there already.
Maybe you put Echo in your decks with Wong to provide a little Cosmo insurance.
There it is. Okay. So that's what it is. It's all about Cosmo insurance.
Yeah.
Which should be, I guarantee we could probably punch that in, and there's probably an insurance company called Cosmo Insurance out there.
So maybe she is Wong's bodyguard.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So she comes out there, and no matter what, we're going to be able to get these on reveal abilities done.
She'd also be good insurance against Professor X.
Next up is Mirage, which help me out here. I don't know much about Mirage other than at one point
Danny Moonstar, charter member of the New Mutants.
Oh, she goes by Mirage.
Yeah. Well, originally I think she went by Psyche and then Mirage, and then everybody was like, but her name's Moonstar. That's just so much cooler.
Yeah.
She's often a leader of the New Mutants, also was a Valkyrie for a while, so if you're wanting to do an Asgardian themed deck, she totally fits.
Nice.
And was even lost her powers in M-Day and still kicked butt and held her own.
She is a 2-cost, 2-power card. On reveal, copy the lowest card in your opponent's hand into your hand and give it +2 power. If they have Kitty, Now you have Kitty with +2. If they've got Sunspot, now you've got Sunspot with +2. It's a good way to get those 1-cost cards in there started, and you have a little bit of an advantage. Plus, you might get an insight. That was, I think, mentioned in the video. You will have an insight as to what Emma Frost does. She gives you a bit of an insight into what the other person's strategy is going to be. So,
and might snag you a 9-point Ebony Maw.
Ooh, look out! 9-point Ebony Maw,
7-point Titania,
3-point Peter Porker.
Yeah.
So
4-point Rocket Raccoon with an option to go to 6.
I like it. All right. Next up, Legion. This is the card. This is the one that I'm probably going to save up for. 5 cost, 7 power, on reveal. Replace each other location with this one. I love messing with locations. Folks, if you listen to previous episodes, yeah, I love Quake. I love it when people are centering their whole strategy around one location. And that's why I like hot locations, because I'm just like, okay, I'm building a Quake deck to mess with people. I want this card. I want to see what happens when we lay this out on a Project Pegasus and everybody has like massive amounts of energy. I want to see Bar Sinister on every single location. I want to see Luke's bar on every location. I want to watch Legion just mess everything up. And that video that they showed, him being laid out on Storm after
Death's
Storm
Domain.
flooded.
Oh yeah.
She flooded a location. Death's Domain. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's.
But I don't want to rain on your parade, but you know what card would not work well with Legion?
Tell me.
Quake.
That's true. You wouldn't be seeing much. It wouldn't matter then. Quake is
Jesse's favorite cards, never to be played together.
No, yeah.
Well, not never, but I mean, she's 2 cost, he's 5 cost. You know,
it's true. I think this is kind of like what I wanted Snowguard to do, or at least impact how I wanted Snowguard to impact the game. And Snowguard ends up being the worst card ever, it seems like.
Legion, to take it back to the comics, was a character that I did not know much about. I mean, I knew he was Professor X's son. He sort of caused the Age of Apocalypse, but he wasn't actually involved much in he did cause the Age of Apocalypse, but he wasn't involved much in it. But I grew to really like Legion when they relaunched X-Men. Well, adjectiveless X-Men eventually became X-Men Legacy. And then, like every Marvel comic, it got relaunched. But X-Men Legacy was about Legion wrestling with his father's legacy and the X-Men, and I loved it. I think it went like 24 issues. I read it all through the library, and I've just about rounded them all up through cons and back issue bins. Excellent series.
Yeah,
and so I have appreciated Legion ever since then. And then he played a big role in Way of X, which is one of the best of the new X-Men era. So, yeah. But yeah, interesting card. And again, one of those that even if, it's not that his ability wouldn't work, but even if it doesn't change the game, I mean, he's still, 7 or 8? I thought it was 8, but either way, even 7 points, that's nothing to sneeze at.
All right.
So, and I was wondering, what happens if you play him on the Nexus?
Oh man.
Or that might just break the game like Kitty Pryde. And then I remember there was one thing I was thinking about. I'm like, oh, I got a great idea for Legion, because going back to now, I have to rethink the effectiveness of the Living Tribunal. But I was like, oh man, you play Legion on the bar with no name, and then you play Living Tribunal to tank your scores. But again, that's like so super specific. Like maybe if they mess around and make the bar with no name the hot location again, you could try it. But that's literally the only place that deck would even be plausible. And Legion's a pretty high point card, so you're boosting the Living Tribunal and making it even harder.
Yeah, Legion will be used a lot during hot location times.
Legion would also be a good candidate for Echo to bodyguard.
Right.
Because, somebody's like, oh yeah, I bet they're gonna Legion the hot location, and then
they'll try to address it with Cosmo, but Echo's out there I like that.
I'm seeing Echo being pretty useful.
Sounds like it. Let's get into locations. So here we have our first location, which is going to be Lake Hellas. The 1-cost cards here have +2 power. So again, we're adding some heft to some of these 1-cost cards. I put in Zero and Blade, maybe Ebony Maw on turn 3. That way you can at least make sure that you throw down some things pretty early to get that bonus.
Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde's a good one to have there.
Are you familiar with Lake Hellas from the comics?
No, I was going to ask about that if you knew what Lake Hellas was.
Lake Hellas is the diplomatic area on planet Araco, the planet formerly known as Mars.
Oh.
Araco was the other part of Krakoa, and an ancient mutant society that Apocalypse used to hang out in and that the X-Men brought back. Very warlike race, so the X-Men were like, hey, you know what? Well, the mutant nation of Krakoa was like, hey, you know what? Why don't we move them to another planet and we'll just take it over and terraform it and claim it in the name of mutant kind and suck on that, humans. And Lake Hellas is the diplomatic area. They declared planet Araco the capital of the solar system, and we're like, hey, and we're just going to speak to all the rest of the galaxy on your behalf. You guys cool with that? And shockingly enough, a lot of humans were not.
Surprise.
But so it's a diplomatic area, so maybe, the weaker cards, talking above power, which is kind of odd since Araco is a very warlike nation. Anyway, it's featured in X-Men Red, which is currently the best X-Men title going.
Okay. All right. Duly noted.
Sunspot, as written by Al Ewing, is the best Sunspot. Much like Dr. Octopus in a suit is the best Dr. Octopus.
Okay.
Why have we not gotten a variant of Doc Ock in a suit? I mean, I guess that noir one kind of fits the bill, but just Doc Ock in the white suit. Come on, guys.
Come on. What are we doing here?
I told you I would give you the first appearance. That was Planet Size X-Men #1.
Planet Size X-Men #1. That's Lake Hellas's first appearance.
Yes. It's a decent enough comic, undermined by the fact that Marvel marketed it for months as the biggest comic since Giant Size X-Men #1. It was not. I mean, it was good. It was good, but in terms of historical significance, no.
No. Well, the White Hot Room. First to fill this gets +3 max energy. So
that's going to be a problem.
Now, here's the thing. I assume +3 max energy for the one turn that you fill it up.
I assume it's for the rest of the... Yeah, well, I assumed it was for the rest of the game. If it's for the rest of the game, it's a much bigger deal. If it's for the one turn, not so bad. If it's for one turn, it's better than the Sacred Timeline, but not as good as the Raft.
Yeah, I mean, if it is +3 max energy for the rest of the game, I mean, yeah, I honestly think that that's going to be a problem. I mean, if somebody doesn't fill that, it's just like the Raft with me sometimes. Oh, I didn't get to the Raft soon enough. Retreat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think if you don't at least tie on the Raft, you're probably going to lose. Unless as has happened to me a couple times, you get Null and you aren't destroying cards.
Right.
Or Galactus and you've already put cards at every location.
Giganto, and look at that. The Raft was on the left location.
Yeah, it doesn't always work, but more often than not it does. So, yeah, I mean, for this, I'd be playing Brood. When that's the hot location, I'm going to be playing Brood. Probably Mr. Sinister for good measure, and why not Jubilee? And then Juggernaut and Elektra to push people out. Ant-Man because you're trying to fill it. Mojo. I mean, there's a deck right there. Or most of it.
Right.
So, yeah, that one will be fun. More fun and more frustrating if it is for the rest of the game. You're probably right. It's probably just for that term, but I don't know. I'd have to look at the wording for Electro, and
it just says on reveal +1 max energy.
So based on that, I'd say it's for the rest of the game. But
wow, then Sunspot needs to be in your deck.
Yeah,
She-Hulk as well. You're not going to be using all that energy.
The rest of people to fill up that deck, that location.
Get something to get more cards.
Yeah.
Because if you could fill that location up, Brood needs to be in your deck. Sinister probably needs to be in your deck too, so you can fill it up as quick as possible.
Jubilee.
Yeah.
Maybe worth a shot to put Gambit in there to slow your opponent down, or Juggernaut.
I like Juggernaut in there to mess people up, get them out of that, keep them off of there.
Maybe.
Or
go ahead.
I was just going to say, or just ruin everybody's wishes by getting Scarlet Witch or Rhino in there.
Yeah. Or maybe Goose to slow them down.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the thing is if you hit White Hot Room, you're going to want some higher powered cards. So you got Goose in there, it'll may take them a little longer to fill that up.
Right.
Maybe not. I mean, you're going to want to try to fill it up in the first 3 turns anyway, and it wouldn't stop the brood, but might be worth throwing in there, because I mean, if I've figured out nothing else, it's that you can't rely on one trick to win, because you, as judging by how many times I desperately needed Luke Cage and didn't draw him.
Right. Well, okay. Let's talk about real quick the White Hot Room. Do you got some stats? Do you know much about the White Hot Room?
I was starting to say, and I was just trying to look up the issue, that it was introduced in Grant Morrison's run on X-Men, but that's wrong. It actually first appeared in Classic X-Men number 8, which I think those were, Christian knows a lot more about this than I do, but I think those were backup stories where Chris Claremont kind of fleshed out some of the X-Men in their earlier days.
I used to have a few of these. I used to have a few issues of Classic X-Men.
It's connected to the Phoenix Force. It's where Phoenix Force hosts can interact and things like that, is the short answer. I was associating it with Morrison's run, and then as they use the Phoenix more, it gets used more. And that's incidentally why Echo is part of this set. Is Echo is now the host of the Phoenix.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That is, wow. That's purposeful right there.
Yeah.
Because I know, weren't they trying to put, actually, did they cancel that series? Or is it the Echo series?
Oh, no, I think it's coming out on Disney Plus, but I think they're releasing them all at once instead of weekly.
Okay. All right.
So
now, that's interesting because Echo's the spinoff from the Hawkeye series, right?
Yeah.
And she's hosted. That's like, as giving a character a push that I don't know deserves one. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't read any of it, so you'd have to tell me. It's surprising that she's the Phoenix Force host.
Yeah, it was kind of out of left field in the comic, but it was. But I knew it. I knew it happened. Like I knew about it beforehand. It's part of Jason Aaron's run on Avengers, which is mostly good, but gets into some really dark places. He brought back Avengers Forever as a spinoff, and there's literally a whole issue where a venomized Red Skull tortures Ghost Rider for most of the 22 pages. So I've read it mostly on Marvel Unlimited for a while, and I'm getting near the end. There's a new volume of Avengers, and I'm like, I don't know if I can, I liked The Walking Dead. I like superheroes. I don't really want the two to mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks a lot for joining us. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the next installment of Snap Material.